There is a place in Pennsylvania where people hear footsteps running through the dark, and they all say the same thing. Something was chasing them. And strangely enough, it's not Gettysburg. The hauntings at Gettysburg are legendary. The American Revolution? Fewer people talk about it. Maybe because the dead there aren't quite as well behaved. Tonight, we step back further, to a woman who has never been seen, but has never stopped screaming. To phantom cannon fire that even park rangers can't explain. And to a guest room you can still book tonight, where a doctor once operated on the wounded by candlelight. This is not just haunted American history. This is the darker side of the Revolution nobody taught you in school. Site 1, Paoli Massacre, Pennsylvania. September 21st, 1777. British Major General Charles Grey gave a chilling order. His men were to remove their musket flints. They would attack sleeping American troops with only bayonets in total darkness. No gunfire, no warning. Just silence, then screaming. By dawn, 53 Americans were dead and 100 wounded, many thrown into mass graves on sight. Even Grey's own troops were so disturbed by the cold-blooded efficiency that they nicknamed him No Flint Grey. Today, it is one of Pennsylvania's most active paranormal sites. Visitors near those mass graves report the frantic sound of running feet and the sensation of invisible hands reaching out from the dark. The massacre at Paoli was terrifying enough. It wasn't the most violent bayonet attack of the Revolution. That happened on the Hudson River 3 years later, and the men who survived it said the dead didn't fall. Site 2, Stony Point Battlefield, New York. Midnight, July 16th, 1779. General Mad Anthony Wayne led a bayonet charge on a British fort with unloaded muskets. In just 30 minutes, 600 defenders were overwhelmed. One witness account described something truly haunting. Men still upright, fixed in place, as though the battle hadn't told them it was over. Hudson Valley locals consider Stony Point an epicenter of activity. Hikers, historians, and reenactors, independently, without comparing notes, have documented the same sounds. Phantom soldiers marching, and the ring of metal on metal echoing across empty fields. Some of the Revolution's most unsettling paranormal accounts don't come from the battlefield. They come from places that look completely ordinary. Site 3, Fort Mifflin, Pennsylvania. Built by the British but seized by patriots, Fort Mifflin became the stopper in 1777, blocking supply ships from reaching occupied Philadelphia. The British response was the most concentrated bombardment in the history of the Revolutionary War. For weeks, they rained 1,000 cannon rounds every 20 minutes onto this small island. By the time the Americans finally retreated, 3/4 of the garrison was dead, and the fort was a landscape of splintered wood and shredded earth. Fort Mifflin saw continuous use long after the Revolution, and the concentrated trauma of those walls may have attracted more than just the war's dead. Elizabeth Pratt lived with her husband in the officers' quarters in the mid-1800s. She had disowned her daughter for falling in love with a soldier stationed at the fort. When the girl died suddenly of disease before they could reconcile, Elizabeth was consumed by a grief that transformed into madness. Today, park staff and visitors report that Elizabeth hasn't left. She is rarely seen, but her presence is unmistakable. From the empty upstairs of the officers' quarters, a high-pitched scream shatters the silence, a sound so real that local police have been called to the fort on multiple occasions to investigate a woman in distress, only to find the building locked and completely empty. The screams of Elizabeth Pratt are a reminder that on some battlefields, the horror didn't end when the treaties were signed. Sometimes the original tragedy leaves the door open for something else. Site 4, Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, December 1777. No battle was fought here. It didn't need to be. Over 6 months, 2,500 soldiers died of exposure, starvation, and disease. Men were found frozen where they slept in their tents. There are almost no marked graves at Valley Forge. Most were buried in unmarked trenches. Today, the tragedy manifests in phantom campfires that appear on open ground and vanish as you draw near. Visitors hear drums, not a military cadence, but slow, mournful beats. One ranger account describes following the smell of wood smoke across the field for 10 minutes on a freezing night, only for the scent to stop dead. No fire, no source, nothing. Some say the soldiers who never had names never left. Valley Forge wasn't the end of the suffering. There is one place where death was compressed into a single afternoon, and the ground never recovered. Site 5, Brandywine Battlefield, Pennsylvania, September 11th, 1777. The largest land battle of the Revolution. 30,000 men collided, and Washington's army nearly collapsed. Visitors are often told, "There's nothing scheduled today." Then the cannons start. Here, the dead aren't just standing, they are running, a rout that has been playing out in real time for over 2 centuries. Brandywine was chaos at scale, 30,000 men, a collapsed army. Not every horror of the Revolution played out in the open. Some of the worst happened in rooms where men were brought to be saved and weren't. Site 6, Colonial Inn, Concord, Massachusetts. It looks like a charming, quintessential New England inn. But during the Revolution, this structure was the home and medical practice of Dr. Timothy Minot, Jr. On April 19, 1775, as the first shots of the war rang out at the North Bridge, Minot's home was drafted into service as a makeshift field hospital. Room 24 was the doctor's operating room. In an era before anesthesia, it was a place of frantic, bloody necessity. The modern legend of the room didn't start until nearly 2 centuries later, in 1966, when a guest named Judith Fellens sent a startling letter to the innkeeper. She described waking on her wedding night to see a grayish, shadowy figure standing at her bedside. She watched as it moved toward the foot of the bed and simply vanished into the fireplace. Since that letter, the reports have only multiplied. Guests describe the sensation of being touched while they sleep, and staff have witnessed spirits in colonial attire sitting in the Liberty Room, figures that disappear the moment they are addressed. Some believe the spirits are Minot's patients. Others claim to see the shadowy figure of a tall, slim gentleman in a top hat, thought by some to be Henry David Thoreau, whose family once lived within these very walls. Most haunted sites are roped off behind velvet cords. Here, you can check in, turn out the light, and wait to see who, or what, is still keeping their appointment with the doctor. But to understand where it all finally broke, you must go to Virginia. Site 7, Yorktown Battlefield, Virginia. October 1781. Cornwallis surrendered. The war may have been over. It wasn't the end. The months of siege created one of the densest zones of death in American history. Even now, centuries later, witnesses have reported spectral soldiers and disembodied voices speaking 18th century English on Surrender Field. Visitors also report the smell of gunpowder on perfectly still air and the sound of drums at dawn. Park rangers have documented encounters they are still reluctant to discuss on the record. Yorktown was supposed to be the close of the war, but what does a place hold on to when history decides it's finished? And what happens when the dead disagree? 7 sites, 7 places where the Revolution refuses to stay in the history books. Gettysburg may be the most famous haunted battlefield, but it might not be the most restless. The Revolution had 8 years of war. And the dead have had a lot longer to get comfortable. If history has a dark side, we're already there. Subscribe. We'll see you in the shadows.